Hi, and welcome to the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I have an overseas guest from where I live. I'm in Boston, and I wanted to welcome Aurora to my podcast. Hi, welcome.
Hiya, you're right then.
I'm good. So tell me, so you're in the United Kingdom, and I
Yes.
found you and from one of your posts on Reddit as I was looking for podcast guests. And do you want to tell me a little bit about like what you wrote? Because I thought it was really brave to do, number one. And number two, I think there's a lot of people in this world that may be going through what you're going through, and you could actually help them. So can you tell me a little bit about your post?
Well, initially it was admittedly a bit of an emotional rant. I had a bit of a bad day. But in the post, I was discussing, how there's a lot of negatives to being trans, especially in the UK. I can't really speak for anywhere else in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, um, in my experience, just any kind of access to whether that's medical or kind of mental health care, that sort of stuff, it's just really difficult. I mean, that's across the board, but it gets 10 times harder when it comes to like any kind of help for queer people. Um, and so, kind of, what my post was ranting on about basically was that, I've been publicly out uh, going on 5 years now.
And your
Um,
family accepts it, everything, and your friends all accept it?
yeah, yeah. When I first came out, there's a lot of rough edges. I've cut contact with a few family members, but there's plenty of other reasons for that as well. So, um, but across the board, I think my friends and family are amazing about it. Um, there's not one moment where kind of that comes into play, but it is still challenging. I think,
And what type of challenges are you kind of facing? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
well, so for starters, I where I live, it is so I live just outside of a city in a small town.
Okay.
Um, and like it's one of those towns where it's like everyone knows everyone.
Yes.
Just like literally last night, we were all like the whole town was in the park celebrating D-Day, for example. So
Mhm.
everyone's there, everyone so you can always have a conversation. So there's a lot of people that it's not that they don't accept it, but it's very new to them. And so
Yes.
one of the things I was spending a lot of my night was explaining, um, kind of how it goes, how you to go about it, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, at the time as well, I didn't dress any kind of femme or anything like that. I
Yeah.
was like, you know what, just throw on jeans, t-shirt,
Mhm.
you know, um,
And are people
you know.
questioning you, like, "Why did you decide to do this?" Or are they like or do
Yeah, I
they
mean,
understand? Go ahead.
it's weird because I mean, not I've not had a lot of people question it, but I've had a few people gonna go like, oh, you would have been, you just need to have some experience. You'll enjoy being a man, right? And I'm like, well, no, it's not how it works. But
Yeah, exactly.
so, but I don't think there's any kind of malice in that. I mean, sometimes it feels like there is a bit of harsh intent, but at the end of the day, I know that majority of people, especially in my life, they're not
Mhm.
directing kind of any hatred. Um,
Well, that's great because, I mean, it's probably new to a lot of people that if you're living in a
oh
small town
yeah, like
and they
it's a
just don't
very
they're
old
not educated.
population.
Yeah, they're not educated about it and stuff, and, I
Yeah, and
think that
I don't expect them to. I don't expect, I mean, I was new to the concept. I mean, and I kind of knew about queer communities and queer people all my life, but
yeah.
I didn't really understand it until I was about 15. So,
And how old are you today?
I turn 22 next month.
Okay, cool.
So, you know,
And have you met other people, in the trans community?
so I think when I started going to university, I met a few friends, that, that were gender non-conforming or trans masc, but like, I genuinely have not met another trans femme at all, which is
Okay.
surprising, to be honest, because I mean, especially the university that I attend, it prides itself on a lot of kind of open queer events.
Oh, okay, good.
Quite recently, I was helping with they had a LGBT talk panel going on. So but like once again, it was like I'm the only trans person here. That's kind of weird.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, it's it really does like I don't know if it's just like out of chance, but yeah, obviously, I mean I think it's like something like 0.5% of the population, and it's like
Okay.
it really does feel like that
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. I mean, after you are done with the university, have you thought about going to a larger city and where there would possibly be more people that are transgender or even a bigger, larger, like gay queer community?
It's well, it's I mean it's a bit of a tricky one really because I mean it's unlike in America where like moving to a city like was a big task. I mean
Yeah.
far apart. Whereas I mean like just a half an hour drive and I'm into the next city. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? So like, and I'm always kind of going places up and down the country, so I'm always trying to meet new people.
Okay, good.
Um, but but like I say, weirdly enough, it's like still no trans people.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes it does feel like there are people in hiding, maybe. But
Oh, I'm
like I
sure there
say,
are people in hiding. People don't, feel comfortable, I think.
well, no,
I think
I
there's probably
think
a
there's. I mean, unfortunately, I think especially in recent years, there's a lot of not fear mongering, but
is
a
there
lot of whistleblowing
transphobia in the
uh,
UK?
heavily, and
Really? Oh, that's so sad.
recently we had, unfortunately, a young girl who was from the UK. She was killed, and I don't think it was because she was trans, but it was like a big thing when it was
Yeah.
reported. Um, and our prime minister's response was very negative, going saying, and I can't remember the exact quote, but he said we should spend less time discussing this case and more time defining a woman. It's like
Ugh.
when your country leader is saying things like that
Yes.
publicly, it's a bit like it
It feels
gets
a
a
little
bit.
defeating.
Yeah, it's like you're not helping at all. But
No. Well, I'm
no,
sorry. I mean, in the United States, there's, it depends on where you are. I mean, it's a huge country, obviously, but
yeah,
you see all the time about trans people being murdered. I
yeah,
grew up in
it's
Miami, Florida, and there's always, it feels like, and there's a large gay, queer, transgender community in Miami. And I feel like I see more news coming from there about a transgender woman being murdered. And it's horrible. And I just don't
I
understand
mean, yeah,
why
like
people can't let them live their lives.
no, I mean, there's always a scapegoat, and it's just one of those unfortunate things. It's like because if you think back in the '80s, it was cis queer people, and now it's just
Yeah.
it's trans queer people. It's it's there's always something, and like it's you just kind of have to hope for the best that because it's not everyone, it's
Yeah.
not it's they only report on the negative cases, otherwise. I mean, there's no point reporting going, well, this community didn't kill a trans person. So.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I live in the Boston area and I go down to New York often. And there's obviously in New York City and in Boston, there's a
Yeah.
large gay, queer, LGBTQ plus community. So I can't even imagine living in a small town where there's so much transphobia. I mean, I feel like I'm in a bubble because it's so
Yeah.
liberal here.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, I think because across the board, I don't, it's not like we have like, oh, this part of the country is more liberal and this part's more right wing.
Yes.
It's a weird, like, kind of mesh where everything's a bit grey.
Yes.
You could knock on one door and they're completely progressive and loving of everyone, but knock on the next door and it's they're chatting to get people out of the country. So
Yeah.
it's it's a very, very different kind of climate in that sense. I mean, like I say, I
Are
mean,
you going
I
to any
personally,
are you going to any pride parades over the month of June?
um, I'm hoping to,
Because that can
because
be a really
my
good place to meet people.
yeah, well, I go to, so I can't always go to the June one, because of times, it's always I always end up working a bit more during the summer.
Okay.
But my city actually has 2 months of Pride. Weirdly
Oh,
enough, so there's the global one, which is June.
yes.
We have our local one, which is in September.
Mm,
Um, just because, well, Leicester is famous for a lot of kind of open field festivals and that sort of thing. So we just basically spend a month, set up a big
okay.
fun fair, and um, yeah, it's less of a parade and more just a like
A get
an
together,
event.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
an event. Okay. S-
that's so. Luckily, I can always make that one. But yeah, it's it's. I mean, meeting people's meeting people. It's always a bit difficult to walk up and just go hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, so let's go back to your Reddit post a little bit and just kind of talk about that. So you said that you don't feel. I guess if you could just kind of tell me like what you're feeling, and I love it that you went on to Reddit, and I think that a lot of people again will support this. But you say you don't feel
yeah,
feminine, and you don't feel like it's like I feel like you wanted to not be trans anymore, and I wanted to just kind of
yeah.
talk about that.
I think and I mean, I can't speak for anyone else on the planet. I don't know if that's, but I mean, I wish I was just born a cis woman. Like, I just,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm proud of my identity, but at the same time, it's like, just want to take it a little bit easier, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I've had a lot of days where, I mean, I typically don't go out dressed, feminine. I don't often wear dresses and put on makeup just because it's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I mean, and whilst I enjoy it and I can, it makes me feel good. It's doing it day in and day out. It's just very difficult. Um,
Yeah.
you know, like, yeah, it's just it's a lot of effort. I think, unfortunately, I'm a very lazy person, so I'm
Okay.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say because, being I think it's a new routine, right, of getting ready every
yeah,
day. And I think maybe my advice is maybe that just needs to be part of your routine and just,
yeah.
it
Oh, I
maybe
mean,
takes longer to get ready or to do things,
yeah.
but
I think, yeah. I mean, my routine's very packed. I'm currently still living with my family.
okay.
And so part of that is part of that deal with my family is that I contribute to that. So on top of kind of studies and on top of working, I also take time out of my day to look after my family. Both my parents
Yeah.
work, um,
Okay.
so my routine's kind of already packed in that, and it's like, well, if it's like I always keep telling myself, if I find that period of stability where I'm
Mhm.
not having to constantly get up and down, then maybe, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's a
I
lot.
think you
It's a
got
lot of
and, maybe once you're out of university and you are, living on your own and not having to care for your family and you have just a regular you have a job and
yeah,
that's your schedule, maybe then you could kind of be your authentic self more every day.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I'd be by no means at all like, it's not like my family is stopping me from expressing who I am. In
Right.
fact,
But you're busy, it sounds like.
it's busy. So, and I think it's not just me. I think, I mean, just like everyone in this country, it feels like we're always working.
Yeah.
you know, like we're always
Yes.
having to constantly get up on our second job. So it's like
Yeah.
everyone's busy. Everyone's so I think I understand. Obviously, I think it's very. I'm losing my words again. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Um,
I think you're doing a great job. I mean, what the point I just want to get to you is that, I don't want you to give up, is what I'm hoping I can get the message to you.
Yes, I think that's because one of the things I wanted to make clear is that this was just very much so just a rant
Okay.
online. Maybe just read a few positive comments that people put, make boost myself up a bit.
Mhm.
Um, but like, no, I mean, like I said before, I've been publicly out for roughly about 5 years now. So, just keeping going. just,
Yeah, keep it going and,
just
just
hopefully,
continue being who you want to be, like, be your authentic self. That would be my advice. I mean, again, I think your post was whether you were just going for a rant or you were just, trying to clear your mind with it. I think it was a very brave post, and I think there's a lot of people, that are in the trans community that will relate to it in some ways, and they
yeah.
probably have
And
gone through this.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, if and there's no way I've I'm the first person to feel like that. And I think wherever you live, just the news at the moment is just all negative all the time,
Yeah, it's negative everywhere.
especially for trans people. It's that kind
Yes.
of a lot of whistleblowing, a lot of kind of saying this and that about communities. So it does get tiring. I think it does it wears people down.
Yeah.
Um, some more than others. Some people are very strong-willed, but I think for some of the people that maybe take it a bit to heart, it can be difficult. It can be really, really difficult.
What advice would you give to someone that's kind of, going through and thinking about what their identity is? Like, would you tell them to, you know, what advice, like, whenever you first thought that you wanted to be trans, like, what did you what was your thought process, and were you scared?
Well, I think, I mean, there was a lot of fear. Maybe not the same fear that I have now, but because I think everyone goes through it, no matter what. If they're figuring something out about themselves, there's always that voice in the back of your head
Yeah.
that kind of goes, well, I can't tell this person, I can't tell that person.
Mhm.
How do I break the news? Um, you know, and I think so. I think if any kind of advice really, it would just be to really take your time. Don't rush it. Just figure out what's natural. You know,
Yeah.
don't don't kind of go, well, I like putting on makeup, so I must be trans. That's like which I don't think anyone's doing, but just
Yeah.
an example off the top of my head. But like I wouldn't want anyone to kind of immediately rush into things, because I spent the longest time kind of telling myself like, well, I can't be, well, I can't be this because of I like this sort of thing, and you know, um, especially when it came to like my gender and my sexuality, there was a lot of kind of trying to force a narrative out of it.
Mhm.
It's like, well, no, just take your time with it. So I think, yeah, just
Yeah.
just let it come naturally, essentially.
I think that's great advice. So, um, again, I really want to thank you for coming on my show, and again, I think it's
Yeah,
you're incredibly brave for posting that and coming on my show and just kind of talking about your experience. And I would love to have you back on maybe in 6 months or so, and you can kind of tell me
yeah,
like where you are in your journey, and just to
yeah. No,
maybe give some advice.
no, I'd love to. No,
Okay,
I'd
great.
love to do that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I will be sure to follow you on Reddit and make sure that I'd love to see kind of just like what you're saying and what you're up to. And if you have any more rants
Yeah,
or whatever, and please reach out to me at any time if you just like want someone to talk to in the LGBTQ
yeah. No,
community.
thank
I'd
you.
be
Yeah,
happy to talk to you.
no, that'd be great. I think definitely love to meet, especially from friends overseas. That'd be great. You
Yeah.
know, get a different perspective.
Well, thank you so much, Aurora, for being on. Thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.